Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TFangi coming to you with part 2 of my 7-part review of the Transformers Generation Select Seacons / Piranacon, aka King Poseidon. And for part 2, we are going to be taking a look at the first of the 5 deluxe class-sized Seacons who combine to form the limbs and also the target master for Piranacon, the combined form of the Seacons. And for part 2, we are going to be taking a look at Skalor, or going by his Takara Tomy name, Gulf, and some of the Seacons who had name changes. Some of them I prefer the Hasbro names over the Takara Tomy ones by a landslide. There's no doubt, in my opinion, that Hasbro gave the Seacons much cooler names, and Skalor, comparing his Hasbro name to his official Takara Tomy name of Gulf, this is definitely an example of where the Hasbro name is superior to the Takara Tomy name. So the reason why I'm going with Skalor in part 2 of my review after going over Snaptrap in part 1 is because Takara Tomy released the 6 Piranacon Seacons in 3 waves of 2 figures each. Snaptrap, and Skalor, or as they're known in Japan, Turtler and Gulf, they were released in wave 1 of the Seacons. And as far as rarity of the Seacons, I honestly thought that one of the Seacon that we'll be taking a look at, I haven't decided if the figure will be reviewed in part 2 or part 3, but I honestly thought that Nautilator would be the rarest and most hard to find of the Seacons, but the Seacons that are the rarest and hard to find are the 2 that were released in the 3rd and final wave of the Piranacon Seacons, which are Tentakill and Overbite. Tentakill and Overbite are the only Seacons who have the exact same names by both Hasbro and Takara Tomy, so there's no name switching between those 2 figures when we get to their reviews. But taking a look here at Skalor, I apologize, my camera is picking up on the white paint used here on his head. And yes, as far as I can tell, all of the parts on Skalor that are white, it's all paint. There's no parts of Skalor that are made out of actual white plastic. All those white parts here on Skalor, it's all blue plastic that's been painted over with white paint. The robot mode torso, the toes, the head, the lower jaw, that's all those white parts, it's all paint. And it's the same thing with the parts of Skalor that are pink as well. His dorsal fin and his front limbs, even though it looks like it's pink plastic, it's actually pink paint done over blue plastic. So if you were to remove all of the paint on Skalor, he would be an entirely blue fish. So that's a little discouraging that Takara Tomy decided to make the base mold entirely blue and then made the different parts or its paint apps. But overall, I do enjoy how Skalor turned out. He turned out just like Snaptrap. He in beast mode. His main gimmick is that his jaw can open and close. Owes that much. And for those of you wondering what species of fish Skalor is supposed to be, just like Snaptrap, this is what Skalor looks like with all of his accessory pieces applied to him. You've got his dagger weapon that it attaches to his belly. You've got his dual cannons here that attach to the sides of him, and the combiner hand foot for Piranacon. The only place to store it, going by the product photos that I've seen on the internet, is here on top of Skalor's tail. And the tail itself actually is an accessory piece as well, similar to the parts of Snaptrap shell. So the tail, the tail is actually held in place by a 3mm peg instead of a 5mm peg. So just be careful if you mess around with Skalor when he's in fish mode to not bump his tail too much, because that tiny little peg there is the only thing holding it in place. Okay, so removing those accessory pieces aside, here's what he looks like with the cannons attached. Actually, he is pretty impressive looking. So the mold that Skalor is based on, it was originally used for Power of the Primes Rippersnapper, But for those of you with a keen eye, you will have noticed that Skalor's back limbs are identical to Terracon Blot, which itself, Blot, is a retool of Power the Primes Rippersnapper, so... Oh. Skalor technically is more a retool of Blot, but the original version of this mold was Power the Primes Rippersnapper, so it's all personal preference if you want to just call this guy a retool of Blot, or if you want to call him a retool of Rippersnapper. Lately, Transformers fans and collectors, when it comes to figures that are repaints and retools, acknowledge the original version of the mold, even repaints and retools that are more repaints and retools of the first retooled figures. So before I twist my tongue into place, as far as in addition to the opening mouth, Skalor's front limbs can go forward and backwards. They have the potential to spin 360 degrees. The reason why I had them at that weird angle before is because when he's on a flat surface, if you don't have the front limbs angled down at an angle where they balance on top of the back limbs, then Skalor will fall forward since he is top heavy or front heavy. So if you were to put the limbs forward by the official product photos, then Skalor will just want to sag downward on his front limbs. He does have some ratchet joints in the toes, so the feet can go forward and backwards that much, but there's no joints in the knees. Knees on here, the rest of the leg is just one sculpted piece, so each of the legs can go forward and backwards that far, and so if you put them backwards, you can make it look like Skalor is swimming through the water. And then the tail can move up and down like that, but that's only because it has a spinning gimmick where when you spin it around, the tail ends up becoming a Skalor's laser gun for when he's in robot mode. We'll get to that in just a moment. The dorsal fin can technically move up and downward as well, but that's just a result of how it transforms. And for those of you wondering what species of fish is Skalor supposed to be, Skalor is a species of fish that has an interesting history. Skalor is a coelacanth. And for those of you who don't know, the coelacanth is a fish that, for decades, scientists thought that it went extinct with the mosasaur and the ammonites and the dinosaurs, because in the fossil record, there have been no fossils found of the coelacanth that are more recent than 65 million years ago during the KT boundary extinction, which ended the Mesozoic era and the age of the dinosaurs, and at the same time the dinosaurs went extinct on land, the giant marine reptiles such as the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs and other life forms that were once common and found in abundance such as the ammonites and several species of fish including the coelacanth all went extinct 65 million years ago. But amazingly, in the year 1938, 8 fishermen off the coast of South Africa pulled in a fishing net and found a living coelacanth inside the net. And so the coelacanth is one of the best known examples of an animal that has undergone the Lazarus effect, named after the story from the Bible when Jesus resurrects Lazarus from the dead after he had been dead for 3 days. Lazarus rose and was alive again. And so the Lazarus effect is based on a term applied to when an individual species of animal, by all accounts, it has gone extinct. There's no individuals left on the earth, but then sometime after the extinction event, a living individual, that animal is found, and then, surprise, the animal did not go extinct after all. It's still alive and well. And to this day, scientists have not been able to find an explanation as to how there has been no fossilized remains of any coelacanths ants between 65 million years ago and the year 1938 when the first living specimen was found for the first time. One theory, the theory that most paleontologists and scientists accept, is that the coelacanth did not go extinct completely 65 million years ago. 99% of the coelacanth population died out, and 1% of the population of coelacanths survived in the deep waters of what is today known as the Indian Ocean, and the coelacanth's population has always been much smaller over the last 65 million years compared to what it was before the KT boundary extinction. ancient. But yes, I do give props to Takara Tomy for having one of the Seacons based off of the coelacanth, because it is one of the more remarkable species of fish that exists in the world today. And on that note, Skalor here, just like the Econs, rather than being based off of an actual coelacanth with ippers on his body, he instead has a pair of arms and legs on him. So Skalor is actually a mutant coelacanth rather than an actual coelacanth, due to having arms and legs in fish mode. But yeah, I do think that's a cool design choice there. So without further delay, let's get Skalor transformed and take a look at him in robot mode. Alright, and here is Skalor transformed into his robot mode. Again, he is mold mates with Power of the Primes Rippersnapper and also Blot. And one nice thing about Skalor is that you do have interchangeable weapons. So here's what he looks like holding onto his two cannons and setting off to the side. And then here he is with his other weapons attached. And so here he is with his main laser gun formed by his fish tail and also his dagger weapon. And unfortunately, because of how it's designed with these extension bits, when you combine it to form one of the main blades of the mains of Piranacon's Triton, Skalor can't really hold it at a straightened angle where it's facing this direction with the blade pointing forward. The only way it can work is if he's holding it underhanded like this. And one thing I don't like about the tail laser gun is that when you rotate it around for the tail and for the laser gun, there's nothing locking it in place. So if you wanted to, as I accidentally drop it, you can have fun spinning it around. So yeah, that's just a minor nitpick I have with that weapon. But yeah, I do enjoy the paint job used here on Skalor. There's his Decepticon logo in robot mode. He had one in fish mode here on the head. And I believe the Seacons, they all have their Decepticon logos in almost the exact same spots. There's a close-up of Skalor's head. Blue helmet, gold face, red visor, eyes. So yeah, they're pretty nice there. He's got some yellow stripes on the arms. The forearms are white. He's got pink hands, pink toes, yellow bits on his knee pads, and yellow on his shins. And white on the shins is what I meant to say. And yes, just like all the parts of him in fish mode, as you can see there on the inside of the fish head. And you can see there on the inside of the lower arms, all of the parts of Skalor that are white, pink, and yellow. All the parts in Skalor that are not blue, it's all paint. So if you were to remove all the paint apps on Skalor, he'd be entirely blue. So it is a little disappointing that Takara Tomy couldn't at least do the robot mode torso in white plastic. And that they made that paint as well, but overall, I do enjoy how he came, or the overall design of him. So standard articulation for the limb bots from both the Power of the Primes and Combiner Wars lines. You got a ball jointed head. It can only look up and down 1 millimeter, if that. Rotates left and right 360 degrees. Got ball joints in the shoulders, so the arms have the potential to spin forwards and backwards 360 degrees, but on Skalor, his back kibble gets in the way. He's got a swivel joint in the elbow since it's a ball joint, so the arms can go upwards and downwards as well. The only articulation in the hands is the transformation joint, so if you wanted to, you can make it look like he's broken his wrist. It's a swivel joint in the thigh, but here on Skalor, if you don't, you could get into some problem if you don't move the dorsal fin out of the way. So swivel joint joint in the thigh, ball jointed hips, the legs can go forwards and backwards 360 degrees, but again, the back kibble gets in the way. Swivel joints in the thighs, hinge joints in the knees, and no foot articulation due to how the robot mode legs of these limb bots can combine to form either an arm or a leg for the combiner. And overall, that is Skalor in his robot mode. Before we move on to his other modes, all 5 of the deluxe class-sized Seacons come with this black laser gun weapon that forms the combiner hand. And for Piranacon, the thumb has an articulated joint so it can go upward and down that far. The fingers have individual articulated joints at the knuckle. There's the pin shining right there, but no actual digit joints in the fingers themselves. But the fingers do move individually, so if you wanted to, you could have Piranacon slightly pointed forward, and then this is another problem that Piranacon has when it comes to holding his weapons. All of these combiner hands for the Seacons, to allow it to transform into both a left side hand and a right side hand, the thumb is attached on a hinge joint right there behind the 5mm peg that it attaches to, and so you rotate it down like that, then bring it around, and now it's a hand for the other side. And Piranacon's weapons, they're unfortunately so heavy that the thumb just wants to sag downward like that. And so it's next to impossible for Piranacon to hold his weapon since this thumb joint does not lock into place. It's only friction that's keeping it held up in the thumb position when it's a hand. So that is a tad disappointing that Takara Tomy couldn't find a way to lock that thumb in place, because without a joint to keep it there, or when you attach Piranacon's weapons, the thumbs just want to go downward. So that's really the only main gripe with these combiner hands of Piranacon. And because these were released in the Power of the Primes line, you can remove this cap at the top of the hand and you can have a Prime Master plugged into there. Or more importantly, for Piranacon's gimmick of having a 6th team member form a Target Master, this is how you attach the 6th Seacon member as a laser gun, is actually on the top of the hand. But again, and the weight of an entire deluxe figure on there is too much for it to handle, so that sags down as well. I'll cover that more when we get into Piranacon's combined mode. So, with that said, Ed, let's look at Skalor in his combined forms. Alright, and so here is Skalor transformed into an arm. If you collected I did the combiner transformers from Power of the Primes and Combiner Wars, it should be a familiar sight. The waist joint for Skalor's robot mode ends up being the swivel joint in the thigh for Piranacon. And then this is one of the main problems that these combiner limb bots had for Combiner Wars and Power of the Primes. Is that the thighs, the upper legs of the robot modes of the limb bots end up forming a double hinge jointed elbow for the combiners. And unfortunately, they aren't that great at supporting the weight of large weapons, let alone another deluxe class figure. So because these Seacons are retools of the Power of the Primes figures, one could easily make the assumption that Piranacon is technically the final Prime Wars trilogy combiner Transformers figure. I was kind of hoping before I got these Generation Select Seacons that maybe Piranacon might be the first combiner of the Transformers Legacy line, but we got a new version of Menasor instead. And that's one thing to note about the Seacons, is that apart from the G1 figures, the original Generation 1 Seacons, these new modern figures of the Seacons have not been given any figures by Hasbro. So that's a minor gripe I have with the Seacons, is distribution of how they're Takara Tomy exclusives. So here is Skalor one last time as a right sidearm, and to make Skalor a left sidearm, just rotate it around and then rotate the hand and put the thumb in the opposite position, and there is Skalor as a left arm. Alright, and here is Skalor in Target Master mode, and as I said, you take the combiner hand, you remove the Prime Master cap, and then you attach the target, whoever becomes the Target Master for Piranacon, into that space like that. And there is what the Target Master looks like attached to Piranacon. So yeah, I'm really impressed that all of the Seacons can become an arm, a leg, or a Target Master for Piranacon to use. So to get Skalor in Target Master mode, you attach the tail using that 5mm peg there on the inside of him, and then you combine his two laser guns into a double barrel cannon and attach it here to the front of him like that. And yeah, there is Skalor as a Target Master. And just a matter of taking these weapons off, and then what you do is the combiner hands, you get them in this position if you want, depending on which side you want on it to be when you transform it into one of Piranacon's legs. And then you take the feet that came with Snap Trap, attach it here on the bottom, and here is Skalor transformed into one of Piranacon, into a leg for Piranacon. And this is the mode that Skalor officially transforms into. Skalor officially, he transforms into the right side leg of Piranacon. And so here it is as a right side leg. And pretty much the only difference between a right leg and a left leg is where the thumb for the hand mode is pointing. Just flip it around like that, and now it's a left leg. And that can and the thumb basically acts as a heel extension. But yes, overall, all a pretty impressive looking leg. And then the other weapons that Skalor comes with, his laser gun weapons, you can either attach them to Skalor when he's in leg mode, or you can combine them with Snaptrap's laser gun. And then of course the dagger weapon becomes part of Piranacon's trident. But yes, overall, I do enjoy this figure, and that's it. I cannot wait to see Piranacon completed in combined mode. Thank you guys all so much once again. This has been the TFan Geek, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.